welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Proud to be here with you. And as always, on youtube.com and facebook.com/wakeupcalldt and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com around the world, including in that state of Alabama and Birmingham area, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, UAB for the Blazers. We are here today to celebrate in our ushering in of the American Athletic Conference. You can see it over my shoulder there, the American Athletic Conference wonderful flag that we have here, and becoming members of it. We have 6 schools coming in, including UAB. I have chronicled this for the last bunch of years, and now I have the opportunity here on July 1st to do a special throughout your day to say welcome, welcome, welcome to the American Athletic Conference. This one is with the wonderful Mark Ingram of UAB, and appreciate him so very much. He laughs when I say the wonderful, but see, the reality is I don't think Mark knows this, because when you are who you are and you just kind of attack life the way that you do, you may not know that you're different and that you stand out for the positive ways. But when we look at, Mark Ingram at UAB, the Associate VP and Director of Athletics, when I say different and I talk about being unique, anytime I call, and this is, a VP, Associate VP and Director of Athletics, 99.9% of the time he picks up while I'm calling. If not, I get a call right back. I get an immediate text message a lot of times as well. So when it comes to, and it's always kind, and whenever I answer the phone, it's always, "What's up, Dan? How you doing?" So, there's something to be said about how you are and how you treat people as a leader. People can get caught up in the power. They can get caught up in the, prestige of the title. And sometimes, we get caught up in the world of, I'm important, you're not type of thing. And Mark never makes me feel that way. I would imagine a lot of people probably feel the same way about this. So I know it's a long intro, but you deserve it. Mark Ingram, Associate VP and Director of Athletics at UAB, that's always picks up my phone calls and always makes me feel like I'm important. So thank you for that.
Well, Dan, I appreciate you and appreciate your coverage of UAB and of the American and the non-autonomy programs out here. We're all in it for the same thing, and we're trying to educate young people and give them an opportunity to keep playing the sport that they love, and give our fans, our alumni, and our university, our students something to be proud of, and entertain them and draw attention to our great campuses all over the country. And you help to highlight that. And I think I'm gonna have to give you my wife's phone number. Maybe you could call her and tell her how wonderful I am. Today's our anniversary and I'm at work, so you can tell her, remind her of how wonderful I am on this day. So anyway, thank you, Dan, and appreciate you having me and promoting the mighty Blazers.
Yeah, absolutely. And happy to do it and happy to have you here on the show. And it's funny because when we kind of fast forward a little bit here from July 1st to July 24th, the American Athletic Conference has not had in-person media days for football since I think 2019. So it's been 4 years now. Obviously 2020 and 2021, we're talking about COVID, but
Right.
then as we get, after that, we're talking about transitioning, and it doesn't make sense to have a American football kickoff with schools that are leaving and to not have it with the schools that are coming in. So between COVID and realignment, we've had to wait 4 years. On July 24th, we will have an official American summer kickoff with all the football teams, more football programs than ever before in the conference, with 14 members. Navy, obviously a member for football only, everybody else a full-time member. And then Wichita State on the other side of it's a member for everything but football. So they, of course, won't be there, but are a part of the American. I'm ecstatic, but going off of what you said about your wife, on Monday, July 24th, it's my mother's birthday.
All right.
And my mother likes to remind me all the time, it's my birthday, and there's no other day but that day that's my birthday.
No.
So I said to Mike Oresco, when we were speaking about this, I said, "Mike, the commissioner of the American, quick question here. Why did you do this to my family?" and put this. I thought we were going to be like mid-July, and they're on July 24th and 25th. So I said to him on air, and people could go back and watch the video on youtube.com/WakeUpCall DT. I asked him what his plan was to apologize to my mother that I'll be in Texas.
Well, you know what? I would say this: what better gift to give your mom than to take her to football media days in Dallas?
Well, and I told her to come down. So I'm not going down to Texas. And I was like, you know, because she doesn't want to be in the heat and all that, whatever. But I told her, I said, Ma, you could come down to Dallas, Texas. I mean,
meet Trent Dilfer.
Right. Meet Trent Dilfer, meet Mark Ingram. How about that? So, and have that opportunity. Is there anything special that's going to be going on with the leaders of the athletic programs? You know, our VP for intercollegiate athletics, or AD, however each school calls it. Is there going to be anything for you that Monday and Tuesday?
No, I think it's just football coaches and our SIDs, our media relations folks, headed down there to manage that. I'm not even sure if there are any athletic directors going to that event. So in fact, I just met with Ted Feely, our director of media relations, who you know, and I asked him that question. Or maybe he asked me, "Are you going?" And I said, "Well, if we're supposed to be there, then yes, of course I'm going. But if we're not, I have work to do." And I'm confident that you and our football coach can handle yourselves. But no, I'm excited about it. I'm glad they're finally doing that in person again. You know, we had in-person spring meetings, the American did, and we were invited. And I was so glad that they did that. It's been a while since they did in-person meetings.
Yeah.
And much like the football media day. And it's just so important that they get together. You know, the ADs, but the coaches, you know, there's a friendship, a camaraderie that they build. You get in the middle of the game and there's a late hit on your quarterback. And if you don't know the coach on the other side, you don't know that the other coach is a good guy and hates that it happened and is sorry. You know, you can very quickly get to that. Oh, these terrible, horrible, delinquent, criminal kids on the other sideline, and they're not. You know, but if you don't know each other, you can let yourself go to that place. And so I just think it's important that for the sake of their camaraderie that they get to know one another. So anyway, I'm glad we did it. And we had good meetings and had good discussion and as much as anything, just like time together that's really valuable. So it'll just be more of that, you know, too, in addition to the meetings themselves and the media car wash.
Yeah, you know, and the opportunity, like you said, to all be together and to get to see each other. I mean, and that's what I said. I mean, I don't like to miss any of this stuff ever. And I've been with the American since its institution of not having a logo or a name. So, I mean, I remember talking with Mike Oresco at the beginning of it, and I'll never forget that conversation. I'll never forget being in Rhode Island and putting my arm around him. And I was starting my business and he was starting the American. And I looked at him and I said, "We're two redheaded stepchildren, Mike, and we're going to figure this out together." So, you know, seeing that and then saying it's now going to be 10 years and on the 10-year anniversary, the conference is going to be bigger than it's ever been is really cool from that viewpoint.
Yeah.
From the UAB viewpoint, why are you so excited about being an American athletic team?
Well, we're renewing a lot of rivalries with teams that we used to be aligned with who were at one point in Conference USA with us, Memphis and SMU and South Florida, and a lot of these schools that we used to have great rivalries with. We're looking forward to renewing those rivalries, and I think that's as much, you know, from our fans' perspective. The television contract that the American has with ESPN will certainly be better for UAB and UAB athletics to promote and broadcast in front of more viewers. So, you know, all of this, when you think about why does college athletics exist? It exists to promote your university. That is why we exist. Harvard and Yale got together to play basketball in the 1800s because they saw that when they did that, it brought their alumni together and allowed them to share, you know, news about what were they doing academically at their institution. That's still the case. We bring people together. We create, you know, we have an attachment, an emotional attachment, help create that attachment to your university. and to help the universities grow. And so that was true then. It's true now. They didn't get together just so they could see who could better execute the pick and roll. They realized this, had a real meaningful value to the institution. And so being able to be on ESPN and, double or triple the number of eyeballs that see us play, it's good for, yes, our team and our athletics department, but it's that UAB logo across the front of our jersey that we're going to carry around the field or the court for 2-3 hours at a time that, millions of people will see. And that's important to us.
And and you look at the American Athletic Conference and what they're doing in this football scheduling model for 2023 through 2026 to kind of test something out here and how they're going to be doing what they're doing. And I spoke with the commissioner about this, that there's a 4-year football scheduling model from 2023 through 2026. It was unanimously approved by athletic directors. So obviously, being a part of this and looking at this, the schedule will have each team play 8 conference games each year. Each team will face the other 13 conference teams at least twice during the 4-year cycle, once at home and once on the road. So in this 4-year cycle, you're going to have a home and away with every other team in the conference. And on top of that, there's going to be rivalry matchups that are created here that we're going to see played every single year in this 4-year cycle. North Texas and SMU, UAB and Memphis, Rice and UTSA, Charlotte, East Carolina, Florida Atlantic and South Florida, and Navy and Temple. Bring me into the UAB Memphis rivalry and why you're so excited that that's going to be an annual rivalry game in the 4-year cycle.
Yeah, so Memphis, Tennessee is only 3 hours from Birmingham, maybe a little less, and it's all interstate. It's a very easy drive from here up Interstate 22 to get to Memphis. So both their fans and our fans can travel back and forth really easily. I mean, make a day trip out of it if you wanted to. But we used to play them, and in the football game, it was referred to as the Battle of the Bones. And there's a gigantic trophy, weighs 95 pounds. It's this rack of ribs. It's massive. It looks like, Fred Flintstone and the Brontosaurus burger or whatever. It's this massive thing, this bronze rack of ribs, and you exchange the trophy. And so Memphis has the trophy because the last time we played, Memphis won the game. And so they've had to dust the old trophy off so they can bring it back this year and let us play for it because the game is in Birmingham. Though I will point out that UAB owns that series 15 years. We played that series for 15 years, and we own that 10-5. So we're excited about that. And again, just because of the proximity, and it's a familiar school, to our fans, obviously, and vice versa. And then additionally, Gene Bartow, who helped found athletics here with our president many years ago. Gene Bartow coached and was our basketball coach, but he also coached at Memphis. And so there's this other unique personal connection between our athletic departments, and that connection is Gene Bartow. And so I think a lot of our fans, for all those reasons, really look forward to that, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, Battle of the Bones. I'm looking forward to it, and there's some good barbecue in the South. So,
ooh, baby,
definitely excited about that. I have also put in to Chuck Sullivan at the American that for the American football media days that we have a barbecue. I would imagine in Dallas, Texas, we will. But I put in my barbecue menu because when Mike Oresco and I were speaking on it, he said, you should definitely send that over. And I said, oh, I got a menu. I mean, I'm a food guy. I love to cook. So
yeah, okay.
I've put if you were going to put a menu together for the American football kickoff, what would be on the menu?
Is this a meal according to Mark, or is it just,
It's a meal according to Mark. Yeah.
Oh, well, so my kids make fun of me because while some people might say, oh, I love a great steak, and I love a good steak. But I probably like cheeseburgers better than I like steak. So I'd probably have, cheeseburger, French fries, maybe some milkshakes. I would say cobbler is going to be in there, some sort of cobbler,
okay,
peach or apple, maybe. But that's your fruit, trying to keep you healthy. And and we'll put a tomato and lettuce on that burger, so you got your vegetables, and that's probably gonna. If I could just have that, I'm not a fancy guy. I don't need a lot of fancy stuff. I'd be perfectly fine.
I like that. I think there should be a giant rack of ribs, and
Yeah,
all the coaches have to go up and break a piece off of the
yeah,
same rack to show that they're all unified.
yeah,
And then
solidarity.
maybe we brand the American A into the center of it, something like that. I think that would be cool, something
We
different.
also get a scoop of banana pudding. We could do that. I mean, it ain't bad.
No. So, I mean, excitement for this. Also, in the 4 year cycle, like I was mentioning, for the schedule, you're going to play every team. So it's not going to be this conference schedule where you don't see somebody for like 3 or 4 years. We're going to have in this 4 year cycle all 13 opponents for each team. You're going to face them twice in a 4 year cycle, one home, one away. What does that mean to you that you'll be able to see the entire conference over a 4 year period, which essentially means in the football world here, as we're talking about football scheduling, that if they stay to get their degree at UAB, they will have faced everyone twice, home and away, and get a full experience of all of the cities and all of the states involved in the American.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it. That's exciting as a player. You love playing at home in front of your own crowd, but it's also fun to go and experience what is game day like somewhere else, and that variety is enjoyable. I think that's a great thing that we're doing. I love that we're doing that. Our provost actually pointed this out when we were considering the invitation, and we were discussing it with other deans and leaders around campus because our president did that. He met with our athletic department, and all the coaches. Do you think this is good? Is this good for us? He met with all the deans. Here's what we think. And the provost pointed out, she said, one of the great things about the American is taking our brand to other major cities that we have not been taking it to. So Memphis, Tampa, Tulsa. Now we were going to North Texas, which is not quite Dallas. So SMU, Dallas, but now you're going up to Navy. So you have the greater Baltimore area, Philadelphia and Temple. So, there's some other real benefits. Again, coming back to student enrollment and growing the brand of our institution that you get with that. And so going and playing in those cities is important, and it's valuable, and it makes people go, oh, where is UAB, and wonder what I could learn about UAB. What about them? What are they good at? Academically, what are they? What's special about their institution? That's ultimately how you kind of grow enrollment. People, for whatever reason, choose to, get online and do some research. And one of the games that we have this year that's really exciting, a lot of our fans are talking about it in terms of road games, is we play at Navy on Veterans Day, which is really cool. And anybody that's ever been to a game in Annapolis knows that there's just a ton of pageantry around that game, and all their games, excuse me, and they have flyovers. We have a flyover. We're so excited because we had one. They have one every game, and they know the names of everybody. That all the pilots. It's like the Blue Angels. They're like, oh, that's Steve and George and Sarah and Rob, and they do it every game, which is super cool. And personally, I have a son who's a senior, who will be a senior at Navy this year, so that's a special one for us. And but a lot of our fans have talked about going up there, which will be a lot of fun. So just that kind of thing, that discussion about, oh, I can't wait. We play at Tulane, which is also a pretty easy drive from here. So yeah, just a lot of excitement around all that.
Yeah, and like you said, to be able to get out there, and yes, you're playing in a game against an adversary, but you're also branding yourself and showing who you are as UAB and the Blazers to the entire country and to all these nooks and crannies. And because of where you are, and because this conference makes sense where some conferences don't, where there is this dedication to the like southern middle of the country, to the southeast of the country, and then a little bit to the north, but there's this emphasis of this area that the American Athletic Conference has that can help out in recruiting, because when you go to these games, it's going to be in cities and towns and states where your coaches, I would imagine, are going to be going anyways.
Sure.
So it's definitely a big thing. Your coach, your head coach, he is somebody. Now I have an interesting story, and I'm going to hopefully get to share this with him at media days. Trent Dilfer, the new head coach of UAB.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, you've heard of him. It's good. And so Super Bowl 35 champion, and obviously spent over a decade in the NFL. He has also, worked his broadcasting chops in this world of sports. And Trent Dilfer, I want him to know this. Two things. Number one, and I look forward to telling him this face to face, I stood up for him when people were like, "Oh, Trent Dilfer, he's not a good enough quarterback to win a Super Bowl. He's not capable enough." And I was like, "Have you watched him play this season?" So in that game that they played, Super Bowl 35, Trent Dilfer, I still remember his pass to a wide open Brandon Stokely. And I also remember in that game, it was Trent Dilfer on the other side, Kerry Collins, Ravens versus Giants. I had a temperature of 103. I was sick. I was laying in bed. I was in the pull-out couch in the house I grew up in. My mom came downstairs to be there and kind of just check on me. And she's like, "Honey, are you sure you want to watch the Super Bowl?" And I said, "Yeah, Ma, I can't miss it." I watched the entire Super Bowl to see Trent Dilfer win when he won. And I watched it with my fever and all of that. When he won and the team won, I looked at the TV and I went, good. I said, "Good for them. Good for him. Now I can go to bed." So I look forward to telling him I watched his Super Bowl, cheered him on, and still remember it despite having a fever of 103.
Well, he's doing a great job so far. He's undefeated still, so that makes it easy to love him. But yeah, he's an easy to like guy. He's a real he really sees himself as a member of the department and the university. He's been all over campus. He's very welcoming to people coming around. But he's been aggressively out and around and meeting students, and he looks forward to doing that. His first few months were dealing with this massive transition of staff, but also an onboarding staff, but also recruiting. You're in the middle of recruiting. You're not just recruiting new players, you're recruiting your existing team to stay. And because they're enticed through the transfer portal to get in, somebody's going to pay them some small amount of money to get in the portal and transfer, and for an opportunity to start, which they have an opportunity to stay here and start. But so you're doing a lot of that. So it's hard for him early on to do as much as you in theory would like to do, because he was just, up to his eyeballs in all this personnel, all these personnel issues, again, staff and players.
Yeah.
But I think, but now that he got through the first few months, and then got into spring practice, he's been able to do a lot more of that, and everybody that he's with really enjoys him, and he does such a great job. You'll love interviewing him. He's a great interview. He holds nothing back, maybe to a fault, but he's confident in himself and secure in who he is, and so he's like, "Look, I'm not like everybody else. I'm not trying to get the next job. I want to do a great job at the job that I'm at. If you don't like, what I said, and that makes you dislike me, and oh well, he's like, but I'm not gonna sugarcoat it because somebody thinks that, it's just not appropriate to call somebody out." So the other day, a lot of people saw it. He's like, "Look, get out of my roster. Get out of my locker room." And there are staffs around the country who have personnel dedicated to knowing everyone else's roster and know their weak points, and where can we find somebody that's good on another team that we think we could go buy. And that's what they do. I mean, he's got messages from our players, messages from other people where, "Hey, we'll pay you this much money if you get in the portal and you can come here. We think you could start here." And, that's totally illegal, so at some point, somebody's got to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I agree. And the funny thing is that people didn't think this was going to happen. And they were under some weird impression that when you legalized cheating, that it would somehow make cheating happen less, or it would be better. And that doesn't make any sense. And so, I mean, we've seen this happen since the institution of sports, right? Of people breaking the rules to go get somebody, paying players when they're not supposed to be paid. But to think that the portal and NIL wouldn't work hand in hand in a negative way was honestly ignorant for people to think, and
Yeah, but
naive.
they didn't come together, and that's the problem with all of it. The decisions get made in these silos. They don't get made together like that. So it's It's cost of attendance stipends. It's the autonomy rules that created. That's really what started the problem, Dan, is the creation of autonomy conferences. It cut half of us out of the room, which we kind of kept each other grounded on things in the past. And over time, the bigger budget schools grew tired of the smaller budget schools making decisions for them and that applied to them. But what it did was it was a checks and balances that created, parity amongst us. And so anyway, autonomy changed all of that. So marketing dollars go. I mean, if you're in charge of sports marketing for Nabisco, do you want to align with this group of 5 schools over here or conferences, or do you want to align with the Power 5? Well, you're a human, so you're gonna do that. So all the money goes there for television, thus television dollars are bigger, and they're bigger for those leagues, and that's just created this separation amongst all the programs. But then so that's autonomy, which leads to cost of attendance rules, which leads to Alston money, which leads to now NIL. And NIL in its form is not bad. Collectives are bad. Collectives are pay for play, and now we all have these pay for play collectives. We don't even shy around. That's what it is. I mean, I was talking to one of the best recruiters in the country on Sunday from another school who I used to work with, and he said, it used to be about relationships. It used to be about the relationship you build with the kid and their family and their coach, and then the kid would have a relationship with you and the school, and that's how they made their decision. Well, then when they got there, things weren't perfect and always wrapped up in a perfect little red bow. It was okay because they trusted you. You built trust over time in a relationship. He goes, you just call a player and say, hey, we'd like you, and we'll give you $100,000 if you come here. And the kid says, hey, coach, thanks. I got a call with school down the road tomorrow. I'll let you know. School down the road. Hey, coach, school down the road will give me 110.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll give you 120. And and now a new school is entered and they'll give me 125, and you're just back and forth. So the kid takes the highest bid and they go there. And if it's not tied up in a little red boat, they have no trust, no relationship of any sort. And so they jump in the portal to get more money somewhere else and go somewhere else. And that's why you see these kids bouncing around with no loyalty to the school. And so it's made the coaches conversely have no loyalty to the kid. So it's just bad. It's just bad all around. True, authentic NIL, all good, but that barely exists. It barely exists. And you've got hundreds of thousands of student athletes who really just want to play, but the vast majority just want to play. But it's just complicated this process in a negative way, and so.
No, I mean, you brought it up. I mean, the fact that you could just and it is illegal to call. I mean, you're not supposed to talk to anybody until they enter the portal, which I already don't believe, because why would you enter if you don't like the situation you're in? You want to at least know that the next situation could be better, or that anybody wants you or is even interested in you.
I'm going into the portal. If I'm going to the portal, I got a plan.
Right.
Like some of these kids don't have a plan. I'm going to have a plan. If I'm going in, I want a plan. I want to be sure that I got a better situation waiting on me. I'm going to go in the portal. I'm going to come right out. I'm going to go there.
Right.
The other rule that was layered into this, again, in a silo, was to play immediately. You used to have to sit out a year. And so the downside of the transfer portal, the portal is just a mechanism. It's basically just like an online form, but it creates a list, and we get an updated list of who went into the portal yesterday and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What you now have is, because I can play immediately, you used to have to go sit with your coach. Coach, I want to transfer. Coach Tortora, I've decided I want to transfer. Oh, well, Mark, why do you want to do that? Well, I'm homesick. I'm not playing. I'm whatever. I want to be closer to home. Whatever the rules were or the reason, I want to transfer. And then you would give me my release or you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And if you didn't give me my release, I could still leave. I just couldn't go be on scholarship immediately. But oftentimes you would give me, a release, and you'd say, hey, look, you can transfer, but I don't want you to transfer to a school in our conference, or I don't want you to transfer to a school that we're going to play while you're there. You're good. That's why we recruited you here. I don't want to have to play against you. Yeah. And so there was some discussion there, and then the kid had to sit out a year no matter where he went, or she. And the value in that is it made everybody pause. You never made an emotional decision. You didn't get fussed at practice and then go into the portal tonight because you're mad. You had to think about that, let time pass, cooler heads prevail. Let's have that awkward, difficult discussion between the player and the coach. You know, maybe the coach doesn't even know you're unhappy. You coach, I'm not happy. Why not? Why not? And the coach goes, gee, I didn't know that you'd be willing to play special teams. Yeah, man, I want to get on the field. You know, and all of a sudden you work through it. That's what grown-ups do. You got to work through issues. But now, because you can play immediately and you can get on the portal without any help, I can do that on my cell phone at night with very little assistance. And then they're in. And once they're in, they're in. And it's just it's a free for all right now, and we've got to get our arms around. But all this to say, Trent Dilfer has got his work cut out for him, but is doing a great job, and we're excited. And he's a high energy person that is tackling all these issues and challenges in stride. And we have no doubt that I mean, our players, the ones that are on the team from last year, keep coming up to me during practice. Hey man, I'm loving this. And some of them that were even the most vocal about, we want the previous interim staff to keep, to stay. And some of them even have come up to say, hey, sorry, but this is fantastic. We're looking forward to the season. So it's gone well, and we look forward to, better days ahead.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to unpack. There's a lot of things to look at. I feel bad for coaches today, and I ultimately feel bad for student athletes, because if you're taught no personal responsibility to value a dollar over a relationship, it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. And I think, maybe there just needs to be enough instances where players feel lost and players get trapped in the portal and they run out of, the musical chairs, that when the music stops, they run out of chairs. And there's enough of these sob stories and people with no education back in the same neighborhood. Now they don't have a scholarship. They don't have a free ride. They don't have an education. They don't have a plan. They don't have a future, for people to turn around and say, hey, maybe money isn't everything. We have to get to a place where cooler heads prevail. We have to get to a place where, God forbid, you actually have to work toward what you earn and go through adversity and go through hardships and maybe go through a coaching change. Coaches used to get away with a lot. They could promise a kid everything and leave. And so that's the argument for the kid to be able to do that. But two wrongs don't make a right. And all you're seeing now is nobody's loyal to anybody. Everybody's screwing each other over. And it's going to create a very disturbing, money-driven, no loyalty kind of graveyard. And then
it's
eventually,
not sustainable, Dan.
No, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, that's the other thing is, how many times does a big booster pay a player who gets benched and transfers? I mean, how many times does that happen? Before that booster says, "Hey, man, don't come back to me. I'm not doing that anymore." And I mean, that needs to happen, and it has happened, and it'll continue to happen. But the more that happens, the more I think that's really what I think will shift the way we operate, hopefully. But you've got some of these at the the top, I don't know, call it 20, top 30 schools who have great fans and great fan bases, and they're just total fan geeks that will pay any amount of money hoping that that'll give them a relationship with that player who got played, because they're just like enamored by this 18-year-old kid that's a great football player, basketball player, and they want to be able to sidle up next to him. It is wild what some grown adults will do to spend money to try to buy a relationship with a person that they hope is one day a professional athlete. It is nuts, but it's happening.
You're essentially betting on horses. And I think what it comes down to is, if you're a fan of UAB, if you're a fan of Alabama, if you're a fan of Syracuse, if you're a fan of Kentucky, if you're a fan of Utah, and all these, players keep changing, and so the jerseys keep changing, just like the NFL.
Yeah.
Are you going to be a fan of the school when your favorite player, you have to keep recycling your jersey? I wasted $100. I wasted $100. I wasted $100. I mean, when the next three quarterbacks of jerseys that you buy for Alabama are no longer on Alabama, are you still an Alabama fan, or do you become a fan of wherever those players go? And that's what's really going to affect things, is what our fan base is going to look like. Are fan bases going to be for the individual, or are they going to be for the team? Because
I think the team, I don't worry about that. I mean, that's a valid question, but But if I live in this state and I went to school there,
Yeah.
that's who I'm cheering for. And I think the point in all of it is that the universities and those teams are much bigger than any one player.
Yeah.
No matter how, whether if a player won the Heisman Trophy, hey, that player was great, but I still love this school whether you won the Heisman Trophy or not.
Right.
And because that's where I went to school, or it's where I grew up, or it's where my parents went to school and they raised me to be a fan of that school. I'm going to keep being to me, that's the point.
Yeah.
Is it's not about the players. You got to have the players to put on the field, but there's a lot of players that want in. And to me, as an association, we've got to sort of stomp our foot down and say, look, these are the rules, and these are the rules for everybody. If you want to be a part of it, this is what you follow. And your state law can change, and great, good. You can just opt out, just go be your own, be an independent. But you're not going to compete for our championship, and you're not going to compete in the other thing. To me, that's what ought to happen. The other thing that I think will be great, this will never happen, is if you look at the NFL. The reason that the NFL is the number one sport to watch, according to television, it's the most highly rated sporting event. The NFL does its broadcast rights collectively,
Yeah.
right? As an association, as a league, the NFL. What they do not do is the NFL does not let the AFC, East, West, North, South, and Central, they do not all go out and individually market their own television rights, right? Same thing in the NFC. They're not doing that. The NFL does it. Well, so you got all these conferences, the divisions within the two conferences, they're not trying to do their own television rights. We are doing our own television rights, conference by conference. If the NCAA said, look, we're gonna put out for bid all the broadcast rights for college football, it'd be a monster number, right?
Yeah.
But then we're going to share that number equally amongst everybody, like the NFL. The NFL takes the Super Bowl champion, they get the last pick of the draft, not the first pick of the draft. It creates parity.
Yeah.
Well, that's what makes the NFL so great. You don't have the same team winning the championship every single year. You do have, as we call them, dynasties here and there, where a block of time, where a couple of teams are better, but then it shifts.
Yeah.
Buffalo's great right now. Kansas City's great right now. Well, what's going on with the Patriots? I thought the Patriots were the best. Well, they were the best for a long time. They were the best. They're not the best right now. And so this shifts and changes. The Bengals, for goodness sakes, haven't been good for forever. They've been to one Super Bowl until all of a sudden Joe Burrow shows up and they got the right group of coaches and the right group of players, and they're a competitor again. Yeah. And so the Eagles, all these teams that have sort of moved up and down. Where are the 49ers right now? Well, they're really good, but when Joe Montana was there, man, they were the team, right? And so it's that parity that makes that league great. And I think that's another challenge that we face, is that we're going away from parity. The NCAA worked hard to create parity for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But autonomy legislation has reversed that. So we need to think about that, in my opinion, to try to get things back to what we all used to know and love.
Well, and that's the whole point of March Madness, right? Is that the NCAA tournament creates parity, but college football, there is no parity. And I still think there's a world where the SEC is going to become its own league. And I think autonomy is just opening the world to that. And I think the ACC needs to be on alert right now for sure, because I said it last year and we're now a year forward. The worst action at this point is inaction, and they have not been involved in realignment. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. So we'll see what it looks like as we go from here. But in closing about realignment, here in this July 1st, ushering in special on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as UAB steps into the American Athletic Conference, what are some words, some thoughts that are on your mind? What's the mission? What's the vision as the leader of athletics at UAB? When you look at your coaches and your assistant coaches and all of your staff and your student athletes, and you look at UAB in general, when Mark Ingram stands to the podium, what do you say about today's historic move?
Yeah, well, it's a thrilling time for UAB athletics. And we're all a part of it. And it's a moment in history that we hopefully should never forget. And It's this historic date for us that will mark a new era in our program as our program has grown and improved and evolved. Now, that doesn't come without challenge, but we're here to face that challenge head on and look forward to it.
Yeah, and I'm excited, very excited about this. I thank you over the last few years of letting me be a part of this ride from the moment that it happened, and all the kind words and all the positivity that you brought to it. I look forward to what Wake Up Call and UAB can do in the future. And as always, Mark, I really do appreciate your time. And it shows how small the world is that Ted Feely, him and I met at Syracuse University in my hometown, and here of all places, he's down at UAB, and
Yep.
I already know you're in good company with him. So I want to shout out Ted, and as well as yourself and your entire team down at UAB for the work that you're doing, and for letting me have such an open door policy with UAB. Really does mean a lot to me, and I want to thank you for that.
Sure thing, Dan. Thank you. Appreciate you having me.